everybody. Welcome in to our weekly live stream over here at youtube.com/FantasyPros. It is me, Dan Harris. With me is my very good friend, Lauren Carpenter. Lauren, how are you today?
Oh, fabulous.
Your hair looks great. You're
Spectaculous.
just saying you just got a haircut, right? When
I
you just
did.
get a haircut, it saves the whole day, right?
It does. Although this is a little odd because I'm used to my hair being so long. So I'm still in that weird phase where I brush it. I'm like, where'd it go? There's supposed
Yeah.
to be hair there. So it's a little odd. I'm still trying to figure out how to style it. So there's a lot of hairspray in here. So hopefully this just stays just like this. It may
I
not
don't really
move
I don't
at
really have
all.
that problem as somebody who doesn't have as much hair as I used to. I don't really have that problem. But anyway, okay, so we're going to talk about some waiver wire, but let's address a couple of things here up at the top. I'm sure everybody who is watching this knows about Tags' passing over the weekend, and we are heartbroken. We are going to continue to dole out fantasy advice because that's obviously what we do here at the company, and that is what Tags would have wanted. But there are a couple of things that I want to mention at the top. There's something called super chat, and that has been turned on for this live stream. That gives anyone who wants to the opportunity to donate to the GoFundMe that we have set up for Tabby, Tags' wife, and his family. All proceeds are going to from our live streams are going to be donated to that GoFundMe. So if you want to do that and you do that through the super chat, we will try our best to answer your question and we'll move you to the top of the queue. I can't guarantee it right now, but obviously, Tags meant a lot to you guys who are watching. It meant a great deal to us, of course. So obviously, if you are able, anything you want to do, and if you don't do it through the super chat, again, you can go to the GoFundMe that's in our description in this video, and we will also post a direct link to it in our chat, and you can find it on Twitter as well. Second thing to mention is that we're going to be doing a giveaway this Sunday during our 12 p.m. live stream on October 3rd on this YouTube channel right here, courtesy of our friends over at pristineauction.com. One lucky YouTube subscriber is going to get an autographed Alvin Kamara jersey. How do you enter? It is very simple to do so. Just subscribe to the YouTube channel before noon Eastern, before that live stream starts on Sunday. Ask a fantasy related question in the chat during that show. That is it. We're going to announce the winner at the end of the stream. So make sure you stick around till the end to claim your prize. The housekeeping is now done. We can get into the waiver wires. Lauren, are you ready to go?
I'm ready. Born ready.
Lauren, there is a number one waiver wire claim this week, in my opinion, with a
Mm.
bullet. Let me know, who is your number one waiver wire claim this week?
Josh Gordon. I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding.
I knew though. See, I know you well enough to know you were throwing me a curveball. Go ahead.
I'm kidding. It's obvious. It's Chuba Hubbard. I mean, no matter what, I've actually tried to address this question several times, and I'm still kind of leaning to being ultra aggressive if you are not the Christian McCaffrey manager, because he is going to be such a valuable trade asset that I think that being a little bit more aggressive than you normally would on someone like Chuba Hubbard than to just trade him away, because I'm worried about his goal line opportunity. And I think he's going to be volume based in between the 20s. But either way, that is your first priority waiver claim. That is where you're going to be throwing a ton of your fab. And honestly, it's for me to trade him away to get a piece that is going to be a little bit more longer lived than Chuba Hubbard will be. Hopefully, speedy recovery to Christian McCaffrey as well.
Of course. So let me make sure I understand you right, because I think it's a really interesting thought. You want to pick up Chuba Hubbard. You do not roster Christian McCaffrey in this space. You want to pick up Chuba Hubbard, and then you want to immediately trade him for a better long-term asset just to capitalize on that value. Is that right?
That's correct. That's
I
correct.
like
Because
I like
I
it.
just I don't think that Chuba Hubbard is going to be sustainable rest of season, but I do want a running back that is going to be sustainable rest of season, and that is one of the juiciest trade assets that you could possibly have right now. They has a lot of capital behind him, so that's kind of the strategy I'm using for Chuba Hubbard.
I love it. I
Thank
really do
you.
love it. And so let's break down, though, exactly what we think we can expect from Hubbard and what his outlook is. So here's what we know about Christian McCaffrey. Was a report that his hamstring strain is, quote, less than a grade 1. Fantastic. That's as good as
Yay.
you can do. Yay. So, but he will probably miss, he's almost certainly going to miss this week at the very
Yes.
least. And I think they think he's probably going to miss 2 weeks, is the guess. He's not going on IR, so it's probably not going to be 3 weeks. So I think you can reasonably expect 2 weeks. Start here, Lauren. What do you actually expect Hubbard to do in these 2 weeks that we expect McCaffrey to miss? I mean, do you think he's going to be like RB2 type production? You said you're concerned about the goal line work.
Yeah, I believe RB2 is going to be a safe option there for him. What I really think he's going to do, though, Dan, is give you a ton of heartburn. So when you are doing your grocery shopping, make sure you pick up some Pepto Bismol, maybe some Pepsid AC, something along those lines, because if you do have to start Chuba Hubbard, you are obviously not going to get the kind of production you would from Christian McCaffrey. They're going to be relying on tight end Tommy Tremble. They're going to be relying on Chuba Hubbard. Royce Freeman is still there too. He's the veteran back. But he's going to be fantasy annoying, not fantasy relevant. There's going to be so many things that are going to be going into this offense, not to mention all of the wide receivers that are going to be taking a step up, including Robbie Anderson, to fill in this void that an absent Christian McCaffrey leaves. So do not have super high expectations for Chuba Hubbard. That's why I don't even want to start him. I have Christian McCaffrey in several leagues, and I didn't even want to pick him up off of waivers until I was talking with other people in those leagues, and they're like, "Oh, I'm so and so first claim priority. I'm getting Chuba Hubbard," and I was like,
Right.
"If I had him, I could get David
Sure.
Montgomery off of his
Whoa.
team."
I mean,
Something like that. Not yet, that's aggressive, but you know
I
what
get
I
it.
mean.
I
So
get it.
that
No,
is
no, no.
why I kind of went there because I don't have that upside good vibes from
Yeah.
Chuba Hubbard.
I think that's fair. So I think with all that said, he is number one in your waiver wire priority in every league, regardless. So there are a couple things. Number one, they get Dallas, they get Philadelphia the next 2 weeks. So those aren't matchups that you are running away from or anything like that. But you make the very good point, and you bring up the name that I hope fantasy managers are considering, and that is Royce Freeman. Now, I know what we saw essentially after Christian McCaffrey went out in this game against the Texans was basically nonstop Hubbard. It's 75% of the snaps or whatever after he went out. That's great. But again, I don't think you can draw firm conclusions on what a team is going to do based on what they do after an injury happens within a game because they don't game plan for that. They're going to game plan coming into this next week. And they could say, you know
Mm-hmm.
what? I trust the veteran Royce Freeman, who, by the way, has been like a thorn in everyone's side for years because he always just steals touches. So I do think that there is a little bit of a cap on the upside. With that said, again, you're right. He's probably going to be the lead back. He's probably going to be worth something. And if you can trade him to the CMC owner or the person who rosters anyone else, that is desperate for a running back, I think that's something that is worth exploring. So let's put fab percentage on it and give it context. By the way, Lauren, if you are the person who rosters CMC, if you are the person who is desperate for a running back this week, if you're a person who's swimming in running back depth, but you want that extra trade chip, how do you feel about the fab percentage that you'd be willing to spend on them?
I'm up. I'm 50% and upwards on this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's aggressive. I understand that. 50% and upward. 50% I think is where I would even start thinking about putting towards Chuba Hubbard. And the reason why is because I'm using him as a trade asset to go after somebody that is bigger. So that is why I want to sign that. If you have an aggressive league, 60, 65%. I'm not worried about that. I don't like hoarding all of your fab until the very end of the season.
Yes.
That's not the greatest way to spend your fab dollars. This is a piece that you can get that can turn into something much bigger and more valuable for your squad. So go aggressive with it. I don't have a problem. 75 is something I wouldn't mind throwing out there either. Even more than that. I mean, I know this is now snowballing, but fab is so odd when it comes to every individual league because some leagues are aggressive, some are not, some are weird. It really depends. But I mean, I would throw a very, very pretty petty, and this is out of $100 is what I mean by, so
Sure.
like that's kind of where I would go with it. Just with the understanding that you are going to be using that wisely because you are going to be able to have Chuba Hubbard, who is at least volume. He's going to be a volume base, or you'll be able to trade him away to the Christian McCaffrey manager for something else. So that is something to keep in mind as well. What about you?
I I probably am not going that high, but that means you are absolutely correct. I am not getting Chuba Hubbard in any league
Right.
because there he is. We saw it with Elijah Mitchell, right? A guy who fantasy managers had never heard of before. And after week one, we're like, you know what? Here's 100% of my fab. Here it is. I need this guy rest of
Yep.
season. And now potentially maybe of no value. He may still have plenty of value, but maybe of no value. So I don't save. But for me, a guy like Hubbard, who realistically, Lauren, you're right, probably has 2 weeks of value,
Hmm.
and we don't even know what that value is. That's a guy who personally I'm probably spending 20 to 25%, and I'm not getting him at that. Like, this is a guy who, if you
Yeah.
want, it's 50%. And I
Hmm.
understand. And I think that that's fair. But yeah, this is not a guy who saves your entire season, with the understanding that Mike Davis did save people's entire season last year when he came in. But again, this doesn't sound like that at all, at all.
Yeah.
So, you know,
You
a
have
guy
to
to
be
have,
willing. Yep, and you have
yeah,
to be willing to take the risk because you're if you're going to be spending, this is what that my strategy. If you don't want to deal with having to trade away Chuba Hubbard after getting him, then don't even bother. Like, don't even bother with it. But this is that strategy that I'm personally going for, under the assumption that I can trade him away. That it's very particular, this particular strategy. But again, in my leagues where I am the McCaffrey owner, I was like, I don't even want to put a claim in, like, like, you know
no,
what I
I
mean?
get
Because
it.
I'm like, what am I
I
gonna do
get
with
it.
him? I have
I
other.
know.
I
I
mean,
know.
I'll play Kenny Gainwell or something. I don't even know, but it's
You
Cordell
crazy.
Patterson. I'd play. You
Yeah.
know, like,
Oh,
ugh.
Cordero Patterson, by the way, PS, my bad on that one. I was very much like, I don't see this. How is this going to really work out or whatever? And I don't know, he looks very involved. So let's talk about other running backs. So, I mean, you mentioned Gainwell,
Mm-hmm.
who got a lot of garbage time last night. There
Yes.
is Peyton Barber, who randomly became like a dominant force at the running back position. We don't know whether or not Josh Jacobs is out. Anybody else who you're looking at just at the running back position you think is even worth a pickup this week?
So, I mean, other than those two, okay, if you're in deep leagues or if you're super desperate, or your leagues have huge benches, there are interesting names here. Malcolm Brown is
Hmm?
so annoying because he can be fantasy relevant randomly. But was Salva, because did Salva and Ahmed play?
I think he was active, but I don't think he actually got a touch in the
Yeah,
game. I
because he
think he
had a
was active
zero.
though.
So I was like, is
Yes.
he hurt? I don't even know. But
I believe he was active unless I missed it. But yeah, Brown got the touchdown and Gaskin dominated. I think Savon Ahmed was just basically not used whatsoever.
exactly. So if you're super desperate, he's a touchdown dependent running back, obviously. And another interesting one. I don't know how long Ronald Jones is going to be in Bruce Arians' doghouse, okay? But if you are in full PPR formats and you have the space, I kind of wouldn't mind Giovanni Bernard, because he is that pass catching. Obviously, he didn't have a single carry against the Rams at all. They were 10 targets and 9 receptions. I believe that's sustainable. No, but when you are playing against defenses that are possibly weaker against pass catching backs, that is when you're going to wish you had someone like Giovanni Bernard.
You know, it's not terrible. By the way, I just checked our data here for the snap counts. Ahmed played 5 snaps and did not have a touch. So there you go. But yeah,
Thank you.
interesting with Gio, because he was involved. There are two things that make me wonder about Gio. Now, Ronald Jones, by the way, is it fair to say if you roster Ronald Jones, feel absolutely comfortable dropping him?
I do. Oh,
Okay,
I
so do I.
do.
So do
I
I.
do.
I want to make clear. Look, I don't want to rely on a Bucks running back. If you do right now, it's Fournette, but a third down back, and if they ever play in negative game scripts, is Gio Bernard. But there are two things. Number one, Bernard did have a slight MCL sprain with that flip into the end zone, so he's not 100%. He's still day to day. Probably is going to play this week. It sounds like. But number two, I just don't know how often they're going to be in these negative game scripts, right? I mean, they play the Rams. They're such a great team. I assume they're going to, be playing in a positive game script most games, but it's not a bad guy in PPR formats, as you mentioned. Yeah. Talk to me about Peyton Barber very quickly, because, again, this is something where we don't know Josh Jacobs' status, and they play Monday night. That's the worst, right? We're
I
probably not going
know.
to know. But this is what it is right now, Lauren. Like,
Yeah.
they have Kenyon Drake. They signed Kenyon Drake to too big a deal, but they signed him to that deal with the understanding that this is your role. You are sort of the third down guy. You are not going to become a workhorse just because something happened to Josh Jacobs. And instead, we will give the bulk of the running back carries to Peyton Barber. The Chargers, who they played this weekend, have a kind of poor rush defense here. If Jacobs is out, Barber could be a guy that fantasy managers start. Are you buying it? Are you picking him up or what?
I'm nicknaming him Peyton Barfer because I hate this situation. Because you're right, but he is so dependent on Josh Jacobs' health, of which we don't know. Because as soon as Josh Jacobs is back, he is now completely irrelevant. And you have just wasted a waiver claim, you've wasted fab or whatever it is that you have. I despise this situation because next week, it could be a Kenyon Drake game. It could be an Alec Ingold game because the
Yeah.
way the Raiders are playing is very clever. And I like it. And it's
Yeah.
keeping them in these close games. So Peyton Barfer could be that guy that can bust off 100 yards and give you a touchdown or two, but then he could also be, 6 carries for 45 yards. And that's
Yeah.
not what we want. There is no consistency here in this offense when it comes to fantasy that I like, other than the wide receivers and obviously Darren Waller. So I would avoid this situation if I humanly can. And if I'm, again, in deeper leagues or super desperate because you really need a running back, again, take a trip to the drugstore, get some stomach meds, plug your nose, and just don't watch the game and pray for the best.
Yeah, I said on yesterday's Fantasy Pros Waiver Wire podcast that if being the guy who fades Peyton Barber cost me in fantasy, I can live with that. Like, that's
Yeah, that's
something,
true.
right? That, like,
Yeah.
I can live with it. If that's like,
Oh,
oh, man,
no.
why did you not buy into Peyton Barber? I'll be like, I don't know. I just want to go off years of data telling me that I should fade
Yeah. Have you
Peyton
met
Barber.
Peyton Barber?
Right. I mean, so I'm not really willing to go after it. Also, I think you have this
Me neither.
horrible probably situation where it's a Monday night game. We may not know the situation by the time lineups lock on Sunday. So if you roster Jacobs, okay, maybe a little different. Maybe you want to pick him up. But other than that, I'm ignoring. But I'm not ignoring wide receivers. And I think there are a couple of really good ones that we can think about picking up right now that might have short-term and long-term value. Before we get there, I do want to say thank you to Francisco Barrera for your donation to the GoFundMe to Tags. And again, I see a lot of people contributing. I will mention you, but I want to call you out just to make sure. Lauren, wide receiver, who's your top pickup this week?
Okay, this is so hard because I have so many. But
Right?
first of all, why is Tim Patrick still not rostered? This
Doesn't
is
matter.
driving me insane, people. I don't like this. For me, I think it's Emmanuel Sanders.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's Emmanuel Sanders. I love this. I love the fact that we have this like veteran resurgence of wide receivers. This is so cool. I love this. It's like
Yes.
2015 called and they want their wide receivers back. I just absolutely adore it. But Manny Sanders is the one that's really high on that list. Tim Patrick is a little bit higher on the list, but I don't know. It's kind of a coin flip for me on this one. But the reason why I might lean Tim Patrick a little bit, obviously, if you haven't picked him up, you don't want him. So
Right.
this is not for anyone who has already passed over Tim Patrick. KJ Hamler, which my autocorrect always wants to call him Hamlet. KJ Hamler, it's all the time. It's so annoying.
I get it.
He tore his ACL. He's out for the season. And Teddy Bridgewater is going to be leaning heavily on Cortland Sutton and Tim Patrick. So that only means his target share is going to go up. So if you haven't rostered Tim Patrick, why? Why not? I mean, silly. He's like 23% of leagues he's available. It's insane. And then Manny Sanders.
Yeah, there's nothing we can say to get people to pick up Tim Patrick, Lauren, because we've been saying it, right? Because I've been saying it for a year. Again, we think
him.
we want to give him like a cool nickname so people like it, like Tim.
It is a little dorky, yeah.
It's in the accountant. I want to call him Tim Fire Breather, like Patrick. People will be like, "Whoa, let me pick up that guy." So the one thing
Tim
I will
Patricio.
So I've got three guys who are there, and you've mentioned two of them. I'll mention my other one in a second. I think the thing with Emmanuel Sanders is, and again, I preach this in the draft season, and I get that he's an older wide receiver and people don't want to rely on him, but obviously there is room for a third wide receiver on this Bills team because we saw last year where you had Stephon Diggs, you had Cole Beasley, and you had John Brown. So who was it going to be? It was either going to be Gabriel Davis or Emmanuel Sanders. It was a bit of a guessing game coming in. I bet on Sanders just because I thought, number one, he actually looked better than people thought last year. And number two, the Bills had tried to acquire him for like 3 straight years. They liked Emmanuel Sanders, and it's clearly him over Gabriel Davis. He's playing the most snaps. He's running the most routes, even above Stephon Diggs. So he's a guy who I think you can absolutely pick up and play on a weekly basis. Tim Patrick, you mentioned it, every week he's just there. And you're right. If people were worried about KJ Hamler, obviously Hamler is going to miss the rest of the season. And the fact is, Jerry Jeudy, he was given a 4 to 6 week timetable to start. That's going to be on the higher side of that, like without a doubt. Like you saw that injury, it was bad, and everybody sort of said it's probably closer to 6 weeks. That means it's out another month, guys. And I think the biggest thing here is right that the Broncos have had some easy matchups here, Lauren. Right, they're 3-0. Obviously, they've faced the Giants, Jacksonville, and the Jets. Doesn't get much easier than that. But now you're going to have teams that might be able to put up points like Baltimore, like Las Vegas, like Cleveland. They're going to need to throw a little more, and that's going to mean more targets for, as you correctly said, both Cortland Sutton and Tim Patrick. Why are they available on the waiver wire? Makes no sense to me. But let me throw one other name at you because this is my like sort of 1A, 1B, 1C. And that guy is Jacoby Myers. And I realize that Myers, is he in your? Okay, good. So for me, Lauren, I don't know about you. I think the James White injury really opens things up here for Myers. And I think we saw in this last game where he got 14 targets because Mac Jones does not look great. That offense is not explosive. He needs a safety blanket there. And I
Yes.
think that guy without White is going to be Myers. So I think you can bank on the targets. And he's going to be a guy who fantasy manager is not going to win you your league, but you can kind of rely on going forward.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you on that as well. Ranking them for me personally, it's Patrick Sanders and then Jacoby Myers.
Yep.
And there's if you're in super deep leagues or even after waivers have processed, I think this Deshaun Jackson deal in LA is a thing.
Okay.
I think it's a thing because he has a very long history with head coach Sean McVay, going all the way back to Washington. They're buddies, and he wants to get Deshaun Jackson involved. Everyone in LA is buying in on what Sean McVay is selling, and this team is going to go far. And Matthew Stafford, if you've known anything about Matthew Stafford, which I do, my husband's a Lions fan. I also have his helmet somewhere buried around in here. You know that once he creates a relationship with a wide receiver, in this case, it's Cooper Kupp, and also now Deshaun Jackson. And once you create that relationship and you are reliable, Matt Stafford will target you. So he's going to be boom or bust. I'm not saying he's going to have these ginormous games every single time, but if you can pick him up and then stream him against, I want to say matchup dependently here, against teams that have a very poor secondary or a very slow secondary, because like the Giants, because Deshaun Jackson is very, very fast. He is very good, and this is like a resurgence for him. And then AJ Green got over 100 yards again.
Yeah.
What is happening?
Are you buying that whatsoever?
I
Like,
don't know.
I mean,
It's hard.
I think if you're in a deeper league, you can, because there's room for multiple wide receivers in that Arizona offense. For me, because DeAndre Hopkins was limited, he was kind of a
Yes.
game time decision. I'm kind of still writing that off a little bit. But I mean, look, Deshaun Jackson, Van Jefferson, by the way, also getting targets and stuff like that. Pretty
Yes.
much everybody but Robert Woods is kind of getting involved here. So hopefully that turns around. Let me throw a couple other names out at you and tell me what you're thinking. You've got Marquez Callaway, who finally sort of had the quote unquote big game, which was like 41 yards and a touchdown. You've got McCole Hardman and you've got Tyreek Hill. Oh, hold on. All thumbs. Okay, thumbs down right there. You've got Henry Ruggs is too highly rostered, but Brian Edwards and Hunter Renfrow, who are also contributing. Where's the thumbs? Oh, double up. All right, talk to me about those guys then. So, I mean, I kind of agree with you because we're apparently in on this Raiders offense. Do you think there's reason to pick up both those guys?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't have both of them on the same team, but I
Sure, of
would
course.
target. Yeah, so just to be clear on that, because some people
Of
do
course.
that, and
Sorry
that's
about that.
I
No,
would
no,
not
no.
advise. I would not advise to that. Anyway, yes, Hunter Renfrow again, another solid target monster that is somehow still available on the waiver wire. This kid is no joke, and Derek Carr is no joke. The Raiders are no joke. They are white hot, and they are taking these games down to the wire, like I said earlier, which requires throwing and it requires getting into the end zone. Hunter Renfrow is that guy. Brian Edwards is also a deep field stretcher. If you think about like the way that I kind of classify it in my head is like Henry Ruggs is the real deep guy. Brian Edwards is the medium deep guy. Hunter Renfrow is the I'm right here always. Hi, I love you. And then Darren Waller is everywhere. So I like every single piece of this offense. And I don't know why Brian Edwards is more rostered than Hunter Renfrow. Every time I
Yeah.
say his name, I think of Astro from the Jetsons. Like Hunter Renfrow. Like that every
You,
time I hear his name, it's like the Jetsons pop into my head. But yeah,
what's
I love
funny
them.
Yeah, what's funny is
Targets, targets, targets.
there's a baseball player also named Hunter
I
Renfrow,
know.
spelled differently on the end. So because I do so much baseball, I'm just like Renfrow all day long. Okay, so I mean, unless there's another receiver you want to talk about, the only other guy who I think you're going to get questions from fantasy managers, your fake number one player that you're picking up is Josh Gordon here. Are you picking up Josh Gordon?
Okay, I just talked about this with a very good friend of FantasyPros, Jake Seeley,
Of
and he
course.
has already been fielding trade questions about people who want to pick up Josh Gordon to
Of
trade
course.
him away immediately. So, which is kind of funny, is that it's still that's kind of the same Chuba Hubbard idea. But yeah, he was getting like, "I'll give you Deontay Johnson for Josh Gordon" type of trade
What?
questions. I
Oh
know, I
goodness.
didn't believe it either until you showed it to me. So the only reason I would ever pick up Josh Gordon is if I had a ton of room on my bench, if I knew someone in my league really wanted him and I could trade him away. Other than that, no. There is a name I want everyone to keep an eye on for after waivers pass, because I don't think this guy really needs to have any kind of priority or fab at all. But it's going to be Nick Westbrook Akina. I think I spelled
Okay.
that right. Akine.
Yeah.
And
No, I
this
think
is
it's
because
Aquino. I think you're right.
AJ Brown's hurt, and he was the primary
Yeah.
beneficiary of AJ Brown going out. And this is a hamstring injury, which was like hamstring season week
Yeah.
2. awful. They linger. We don't know how long AJ Brown is going to be out. So Nick Westbrook got it done, and Ryan Tannehill needs all the help that he can get in that offense. It wasn't Julio Jones; it was Nick Westbrook in the end zone. So
Yeah.
I don't mind that. But he is available everywhere, so he
Yeah.
is someone that you can keep an eye on too.
Yeah, I was wondering about Westbrook Akina just because there's probably going to be a second receiver again because the tight end isn't really involved in that offense right now.
Yeah.
Who's going to be doing it? But the only reason why I'm pumping the brakes a little bit, and I didn't not you're not saying like run out there and get him. The only reason I'm
No.
not going crazy is because again they get the Jets and then Jacksonville, so I think you might see 100 carries from Derrick Henry in this
Oh
one,
yeah.
and like no passing whatsoever because they won't need it
Yeah.
necessarily.
Yeah.
So very quickly, Lauren, the top guys we talked about Sanders, we talked about Jacoby Myers, we talked about Tim Patrick. Percentage of fab, what do you think?
Oh. Oh man.
I'm at
25,
10.
20.
You're that high. Okay. To me, Lauren, those guys, because they're not league winners, they're
Yeah.
guys who you stick in your lineup as like a wide receiver 3. It's like 10% for me.
I think because I'm so high on Renfro and Patrick that I'm willing to do that because I think
Okay.
that they can give me season long floor, right? Because that's kind of what we want is we want a floor. And I know I'm going to get that out of at least Hunter Renfro and in my opinion also Tim Patrick. So I guess let me put it to you this way. My highest side would be 20%. If you're in an
Okay.
aggressive league, I would go there, but starting off with yours at 10% is good. Just kind of gauge what your league mates have. If he's on the waiver wire, clearly nobody wants them anyways.
Right.
You know what? Never mind. Don't listen to me. 10%.
All right.
Save
All
your
right.
fab.
So very quickly, let's just get to a couple of quarterbacks, tight ends, DSTs. Then we'll start taking your questions. I do want to mention a couple of people who have donated here. Thank you to Sebastian Dudek. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. We are sad with you. We
Mm,
appreciate your support. Everybody lean on each other, of course, during this tough time. Thank you to Dan Luna as well for your donation. We appreciate you, and I know the Tagliere family does as well.
yes.
Quarterbacks, Lauren. I mean, is there anybody you're looking at? Sam Darnold obviously has been playing very well. Anybody you're looking
Ooh.
at who you think is widely available?
I have three actually that I
Ooh,
think
okay.
would be pretty interesting here. I really like Teddy Bridgewater.
Yep.
Roughly 28% rostered or whatever. They're facing Baltimore. I know
Yeah.
that might sound like, but they've allowed the fifth most fantasy points to the quarterback position, and there's going to be a lot of throwing, like we said. So I really like Teddy Bridgewater. I mean, the Lions have surprised me. They really took it to the Baltimore Ravens. That whole game was just heartbreaking. Ugh,
Yeah.
like I said, husband's a Lions fan, so it was like, oh, typical Lions fashion. But that is
Yeah.
neither here nor there. Sam Darnold, he's another one. I really like Sam Darnold. He's about 22% rostered, 20% rostered ish. They play Dallas. Dallas has allowed the 10th most points to the quarterback position.
Yep.
This does not include Monday night's game, which was not very good for the Eagles. So doesn't
No.
include those stats yet. But the one I think that's going to be the most available, especially if you're in deep leagues, Taylor Heineke.
Yeah.
6% roughly. He's one too. He's pumping out fantasy points. I mean, garbage time works for fantasy football, not
Yes.
for real football. But he's running, he's throwing, he's tough. So I don't know. It's that it might sound crazy, but Heineke's been putting up some good numbers.
Yeah, I don't disagree with any of it, Lauren. I mean, I do think for me, I think Darnold's probably the
Oh,
number one.
and they're
Yeah,
facing
good.
Atlanta. I should probably
Yes,
say
correct. That's I was gonna
they
get
have
there.
allowed the most points to the quarterback position.
I think there you have to separate real performance from fantasy performance. I mean, you saw last night Jalen Hurts was terrible, but in the end, he
Yes.
did not crush you in fantasy because he wound up with an okay game, and that's
Yep.
just what happens. Even though he was terrible in real
Yeah.
life, so I think that's right. I think Heineke can get it done here against Atlanta. I agree with you, Baltimore. I mean, people are scared because of the mystique that surrounds the Baltimore
The
defense, but
mystique.
they are decimated, on defense right now, and they're playing as well as they can necessarily, but they are hit with injuries. And then
Yes.
Darnold, that's going to be a shootout. I think you
Yep.
have to buy into this, especially without Christian McCaffrey. Before we get to tight ends, thank you to Lance West, who adds that he can't wait to show us the Bears jersey that he is making to keep tags with him forever. So
Aw.
absolutely, go get some Bears jerseys over there at Pristine Auction, by the way, which is what
Yes.
I always look around now for items that I think will be great for tags. Tight end, Lauren, there are a couple of names. I mean, I kind of like Tyler Conklin had the big game. Evan Ingram obviously came in. You saw Dalton Schultz last night have the big game. Any tight ends who are available on the waiver who you think are worth picking up?
Yeah, I don't think they're going to be very consistent for you week to week, but these are excellent streamability matchup options. So you mentioned Tyler Conklin,
Yep.
Dalton Schultz is another, Dawson Knox is another one.
Yes.
With
Yes.
that crazy Bills offense is just going crazy, and I just said crazy twice. That's how crazy it is.
Yeah.
So much going on. Another one too is this may sound odd, but keep an eye on what happens with Rob Gronkowski. Hopefully, he'll play in the Patriots' revenge game, but Cameron Brate is no slouch. So if Gronk has to miss time, Tom Brady is not afraid of targeting Cameron Brate. So that is someone to keep an eye on. I'm not saying run out to the waiver wire and pick him up. Just keep your eye on some Gronk health. And I think there was one more. If you're super desperate or in deep leagues, which I always have to preface, Pat Freiermuth. Don't
Yep.
hate that ad. Also
Yeah.
widely available because Ben Roethlisberger is hurt and he is also just plain old Ben Roethlisberger. So he's
Right.
not throwing very far to Chase Claypool, and that leaves very few options for him when Juju Smith-Schuster banged up, Deontay Johnson banged up. So that really leaves like Eric Ebron and Pat Freiermuth. So
The only other name I will throw out, you hit them pretty much all, is in deeper leagues, and this is really deep tight end premium leagues, is Tommy Tremble, because now that Dan Arnold has been traded, right? I mean, there's got to be somebody there. Tremble has looked okay, so he's a guy in deeper leagues that I think, again, this is all gross.
Someone asked me if they should pick up Tremble, and I'm like, no.
No, I mean, look, he is my sixth tight end on the waiver wire in any given week. Your sixth tight end on your waiver wire is not really somebody.
That's what I meant.
Want.
I wasn't like he's gonna suck every single week. Like he'll probably have games, but he's not. He's relax.
Yeah,
there are other options you should go for.
Yeah, I will.
Now watch him be like tight end 1 for the next 3 weeks.
Right.
Just to prove us wrong.
How about very quickly some streaming defenses this week, Lauren? You've
Yes,
got
yes,
the
yes,
Titans, the Titans who stink, but are going up against the Jets, who stink even worse. You've got the Saints who are taking on the Giants, the Colts taking on the Dolphins. Any streaming defenses you're looking at?
Absolutely. Speaking of Ben Roethlisberger, being Ben Roethlisberger, the Packers. There are a lot of opportunities, about 14% rostered, I think. There's a lot of opportunities here for the Packers to force some turnovers, interceptions, and sacks. So that is something to keep in mind. But I think one of my favorite ones on here is I'm going to show a little bit of love to Detroit. Okay, Detroit is not rostered anywhere, and they're going to play the Bears, division rival. No one even knows who the quarterback will be for the Bears. It might likely be Nick Foles. So nobody knows what's going on there. And I brought up the Baltimore game, like I was telling you. The Lions defense has been surprisingly stout. So they were losing these games towards the end, which stinks, but they're creating a lot of havoc. And I think that there will be opportunities for them to do so against whoever is starting for the Bears. And again, that's possibly a little bit more of a desperation because it is the Lions and you're probably not going to get a win, but it is the Bears. So maybe you will. And again, it's just this mad situation we have going on with the quarterback position that I think will allow for really good opportunities for the Lions defense to create some plays.
Yeah, there are actually a lot of decent streaming defense. You've got Cincinnati, who's played well again.
Bengals are another one.
Yeah, taking on Jacksonville. But you mentioned the Packers again. Pittsburgh's not an offense that you shy away from an opposing defense. So if you are struggling there, I think there are definitely options.
There are options this week.
There are options. This is a streaming defense week. Are you ready to get to some questions?
I'm ready.
All right. First, thank you to Albert de los Santos for contributing again. I know the Tagliere family appreciates the overwhelming support they've gotten from our community and from our listeners. Okay, let me get to thank you to JS as well, who contributed and did ask a question with it. Would you trade Jamar Chase or Terry McLaurin for Javonte Williams in a half PPR league? He is hurting at running back. And if not, what do you think is a viable trade target for one of those running backs? For one of the wide receivers, sorry.
Same again.
So you're trading either Jamar Chase or Terry McLaurin for Javonte Williams. I'll say, I don't know about you, I think Jamar Chase is a guy who I would try to sell high on more than Terry McLaurin, just because the 3 lowest pass attempt games of Joe Burrow's career have come this season. They're not anymore throwing it out there. Their defense is a little better than expected. Chase has played great. He's fantastic. But I think, once T. Higgins is back healthy, I think it's going to again cut into Chase's workload a little bit. So Chase is a guy who I'm really trying to sell high, but I wouldn't trade either one of those guys for Javonte Williams.
That's what I was gonna say. I get trading high for Jamar
Yep.
Chase, but his value is at its now I don't want to say peak, but it is at a premium where you can get, I think, someone a little bit more sustainable and
Correct.
someone who's not hurt.
Yep.
That's a big thing too. So I think you can probably do a little bit better than Javonte Williams when you have someone like Jamar Chase that you are trading away.
Yeah, I mean, look, Williams is fine, but I don't think he's really going to get there. For me, if I'm trading one of those guys, I'm looking for more like an RB2, like a very solid RB2, maybe a Chris Carson type or something like that, or DeAndre Swift, who's really involved. I'm fine to trade those guys, but again, I think you need to sort of do that for more higher end. From Matt
Hmm.
Shippy, or sorry if I don't have that name right. Who are backups that I can roster in case someone goes down? I'm thinking Samaje Perine, Jeremy McNichols, etc.
Tony Jones, that's a name that is
Correct.
out there for me.
Yes.
Big one. Obviously, Chuba Hubbard. We've already talked about him. Samaje Perine, that one's interesting. We're talking Bengals here,
Yep.
correct?
Correct.
Yeah, I picked him up in Scott Fish because I don't believe in Joe Mixon's sustainability. So he's
Right.
someone, if you have some room, I would. Don't really have any news sniffing around of injuries for him, but I think Tony Jones Jr. might be one. AJ Dillon is someone I will avoid. On that one, I don't list him super high on the insurance, if you will. Jamal Williams, if he's somehow available. Jamal Williams is a great insurance policy. Tony Pollard, another great insurance policy, likely
Sure.
rostered.
Right.
Who am I missing? I feel like I'm missing someone very obvious
No,
here.
I don't
Alexander
think there's.
Madison.
I'm sure they're rostered already, right? Because of Madison last week and
Mm-hmm.
what he did. But I think guys who haven't really done much right now, but who could have bigger
Yeah.
roles are both Williams, Darrell, and Damian, for the Chiefs and
So
for the
confusing.
Bears. I know. But I think that they really could be guys who have an impact if the starter in front of them goes down. So I think those guys, if you're just looking to have insurance policies, are guys. Thank you to Brian G. Chu for your donation. Really appreciate it. Again, from TT T-shirt, do I drop Sammy Watkins or Mooney for Tim Patrick?
Yes.
Yep.
Watkins.
Yep. I agree. Kyle Sword, would you pick up Tim Patrick or would you wait for Jerry Jeudy and pick him up off the IR?
I would pick up Tim Patrick. And
Yep.
then, you can either, I wouldn't even, I don't know if I would drop Tim Patrick and trade him.
Yeah.
You have the opportunity to trade him if trade has not already been cut off by the time Jerry Jeudy comes back. But absolutely, you're going to want to have someone that is viable now to play. And that is Tim Patrick.
That is correct. Really, I mean, you've got another at least 4 weeks for Judy. I'm sure
At least.
that is a really long time to sit there and wait. I mean, we know from the questions that we get, like people in week 6 or week 7 are out of their league, so you've got to win now. So I would go with Patrick. From
And
Liam
also
Gru,
remember, just real quick
yeah,
here, even if Jerry Jeudy comes back, give him an extra week after being
yes,
active in order for him to even get close to back to being fully ready to go, because it usually takes a little bit of time when you come back from injury.
nailed it. Liam Greason, should or can I pick up AJ Dillon for someone like Zach Moss or Christian Kirk?
No, I would not do that.
Okay. Thank you, by the way, to Jacob Glazer for donating. And he asked, would you rather have Darnold or Cousins rest of season?
Oh, oh, I like this a lot. Which one has the
Very
better
close.
strength of schedule? Now that I have this right here in front of me. Let me go to
Ooh,
the
okay.
quarterbacks
Get to
here.
it.
Because I'm leaning Sam Darnold here
Ooh.
barely,
Okay.
as by a thin little baby hair here. But again, I really like Kirk Cousins. Oh,
I
this
just
is
think
so hard.
Cousins is playing at such a high level right now. And for me, if I'm making that choice now, I need to see Sam Darnold do it for longer and against better competition a little bit than like the Jets and Houston and everything like that. So I personally side with Cousins narrowly, probably a spot or two in my rest of season rankings.
Yeah, again, it's a little hair. I mean, how about this? Which one would you feel better to have on your team? Like,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah. I can we say that this is the patented Lauren Carpenter splitting hairs with the
with a
hatchet?
hatchet?
Yeah, I
Yep.
love it. Yeah. All right. But I will pick up if it's for me, I would go with Cousins personally. Let's get to Scuba 243. Should I trade away Tyreek Hill? That's a big one. for both DeAndre Swift and Brandon Cooks in full PPR.
Okay.
That's tough.
That is a tough one. Here's the deal. If you need a running back and you need a wide receiver, I think that you could possibly get someone even higher than Brandon Cooks. He's a target leader. I get that. So I don't hate this. But Tyreek Hill didn't have a great game. He does have the name value associated with him, so he's a little bit more immune to the highs and lows of when it comes to trade value. But if you are desperate for running back, you could. But I wonder with someone like Tyreek Hill, you might be able to get. Shoot, I want to say someone better than DeAndre Swift, but that feels like it's sacrilegious to say out
No, I mean, I
loud.
think, look, I'm going to be doing the trade chart later today. That's what my Tuesdays are. And it's really tough. I feel like that's probably something that's going to wind up being roughly fair value in the trade chart, but I don't think I would do
Mhm.
it. I think, if I'm giving away somebody like Tyreek Hill, I know he's had 2 down games in a row, but if I'm giving away somebody like that, I think I've got to get somebody better, despite how good Swift has been.
Yeah,
So, right?
yeah, yeah.
I think that's where I am.
I hear you on that. Maybe someone who has a little bit more of the running back share. Because
Yeah.
Jamal Williams and DeAndre Swift are very 50-50. That's
Yeah.
kind of an even Steven split.
Swift is great. I love him as an RB2. I'm glad he is fulfilling that potential, but it's still something where I feel like Hill is probably worth a little too much. By the way, if you haven't liked this video, please do so. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, please do so. It's really easy. Just click that button, helps us out. Thank you to Chris Mason, by the way, for donating to Tags. He asks, what running back would you target for Stephon Diggs and Robert Woods? I assume he doesn't mean both of them together, because if you're packaging both of them together, you probably can get whatever running back you want.
Yeah,
So, right?
Ezekiel Elliott.
Right. I mean, you can get whoever you
You know?
want. So I feel like if you're doing Diggs alone, you probably, I mean, for a wide receiver like that, you're probably entitled to what, a top 8 running back for just Diggs, right? I mean, that's basically where he was drafted, right? A late
Mhm.
first round, early second. Is that about right for you?
If you're willing to trade Stephon Diggs, I would wait until he has a big game, and then you could
True.
really have
True.
a lot of beef behind you with a good
True.
game from Diggs because he really hasn't gotten going in the offense quite yet. That will change. So you want to make sure that if you really don't want to deal with Stephon Diggs, which I don't know why you wouldn't unless you are really desperate at running back. So hang on to Diggs until he has a great game. What was the other one? Robert
Robert
Woods.
Woods. Yeah.
Yeah, that one's a tough one. He is going to be one that you might have to package into a deal with something else.
Yeah.
And yeah, I wouldn't just give Robert Woods away because he still has some value to him, but that's another player where you're trading both of these guys at their lowest value.
Yeah.
Stephon Diggs carries name value. Robert Woods does not have that luxury. So if you can wait until one or both of these guys has a really good game, maybe even a mediocre game from one of them, I think you'll be able to get back a pretty stud running back in return for those two players.
I can't imagine trading Robert Woods right now just because his value's got to be
It's so
so
low. It's so
minuscule.
low. So
People are
low. You
jumping
gotta
off the
wait.
ship. Better days are ahead. For Diggs, again, if you want to sell him now, it's got to be a rock solid RB1, in my
Yes.
opinion. Francisco Barrera, who donated earlier, PPR rest of season, Noah Fant or Evan Ingram.
I'm going to take Noah Fant, even
Yep.
though I don't like the injury, but I don't like the injury with Evan Ingram too. I'm done with Evan Ingram. He should have been on one of my never again videos that I did. I can't handle Evan Ingram. I can't do it. And
Yeah.
knowing what we know about KJ Hamler being out for the rest
Don't
of the
have that.
season with his torn ACL, and then the injury of Jerry Jeudy, who is going to be out for, like we said, at least another month of 5 weeks. It's Noah Fant for me. He's going to get the
Yep.
volume. He's going to get the target. So, and he's already proven he can do it. He's good. He's
Correct.
a very good tight end. So I'll take Noah Fant.
I'm in agreement with you. Thank you to Batmac Gaming, who asked Jonathan Taylor or Clyde Edwards-Helaire rest of season.
Oh, Lord have mercy. This is going to suck, but Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah.
Jonathan Taylor. It's Jonathan Taylor. I know he's got a really, really slow start, but this happened last year, everybody. Don't freak out.
Yeah.
This is just kind of what happens with this offense. I know it's Nyheim Hines season that won't last forever. It
Yeah.
will be Jonathan Taylor season here shortly. Don't freak out. I still do like Clyde Edwards-Helaire as well, so I just think that Jonathan Taylor's ceiling is much higher.
It was really good to see Edwards-Helaire have a good game here in this one, especially after he fumbled. But
Yes.
I do think there's still a gap, even with the Colts suffering from offensive line injuries and basically playing in negative game scripts every single game. I think things will get better as well. From Ryan G, would you drop Tyson Williams or Will Fuller to add Josh Gordon?
No. Unless you want to trade him away.
Yeah. If there's trade value for Josh Gordon, kudos, because there always is, I guess. But I would not do that
Don't
either.
fall for
No,
it. He'll
no,
have
don't
like
do it.
he's gonna Sammy Watkins you of the days of Kansas City where he has like a 3 touchdown game and then he is never seen or heard from again.
It's
Or he
so
gets suspended
bizarre.
again. Who
The fantasy
knows?
manager's fascination with this is incredible to
That's why
me.
I
I mean,
when Jake brought it up that there could be trade value, I was like, "You've gotta be joking." And then he was telling me the questions that people are asking. Like, "What? That
yeah,
cannot be true." Like, so if
if
you
they
wanna take
love
that
it,
Josh
yeah, I don't know, man. If you love it, if you want him, go for it. But I think like we've done this dance like 4 or 5 straight years, so I would stay off. Thank you to Raja also who donated here and asked any interest in players that are eligible to return from IR who you'd be willing to roster. Somebody like Curtis Samuel
yes,
or
yep.
Rashad Bateman, for example.
Both of them. Now, Curtis Samuel is someone I think that should already be picked up and be on your rosters. That's kind of why I did not include him in
Yep,
anything on waivers, is
yep.
because he should probably already be rostered. And I think he is in over 50%
Yeah,
of
so he's
leagues.
rostered in a lot of leagues, but he is available
Yes.
in the occasional league. Yes.
Yes, so he is someone I would definitely add in there. And Rashad Bateman, he has the opportunity to be a big, big play. But he's still a rookie. There is still Marquise Hollywood Brown. This is
Yep.
a run first team, but
Yep.
I do like both of them. I think you might get a little bit more stable floor with Curtis Samuel,
Yep.
whereas Bateman is going to be the boom bust guy.
Yeah, I have more faith for sure in Samuel, a guy I liked before all the injury concerns leading into the season.
Yes,
I think Bateman, he's going to need a couple of weeks still. Obviously, he's not going to come back yet this week. And then he's
yes.
got to get acclimated to the offense. So, more of a long
Yep.
term ad for him. I would be targeting Samuel. From Ian Smith, what value does AJ Dillon have to somebody who has Aaron Jones?
It depends on how much that fantasy manager believes in wanting to have their own insurance policy. That
Right.
I really that is a very open-ended type of question that it's hard to quantify for you and give you a specific answer. But feel out the person who has Aaron Jones and just let him know that AJ Dillon is up for a trade. What you got?
Yeah, I think that AJ Dillon really, it's the same value as it has to anybody. I get that the manager who has Jones wants to roster his insurance policy, but I also think that, I mean, if something happens to Jones and Dillon becomes a locked in start no matter what. So he has value as that insurance policy, as do a lot of guys. So really just float it, see what's out there. From Darwin Mendez, should I trade Josh Jacobs for Emmanuel Sanders in half PPR?
Wow. I would not do that. I
I
wouldn't do
agree.
that. It's so hard to find your top tier running backs. And when Josh Jacobs is healthy, that's what he is. Even if he can't get into the end zone, he's still running the ball all the time. No, I do not like that at all.
I agree. Frank Allen asks, is trading Naheem Hines for Jacoby Myers a good trade?
I think you could probably get more for Naheem Hines, especially coming off of a big game than Jacoby Myers. I would target Emmanuel Sanders
I would look
if
for
he's
more.
on a roster.
I would look for more. We're talking about Myers and
That's
Sanders
true. That's
who are
true. Yeah,
available out in the waiver wire. And look,
that's
I'm
true.
personally somebody who doesn't want to roster Naheem Hines, although they're apparently going to trade Marlon Mack, which will make it a little easier, a little more of an avenue
Mhm,
certainly for this
mhm,
to
mhm,
continue.
mhm.
But I think you can aim higher if you have Hines than guys who are available on the waiver wire who we're
You
talking
know
about
what?
here.
Yeah, I bet you probably can.
Yep,
I mean, you can look at low end wide receiver ones to see if it'll stick. That doesn't hurt to see if the pasta's cooked and it sticks to the fridge, kind of thing. You can
sure.
also take a look at the wide receiver twos. Also, it doesn't hurt if you swing and you miss. Who cares? Try something
Yeah,
else. You know what I mean? But yeah, you can capitalize on what Naheem Hines has been able to do, and this is what the buy low, sell high, that kind of idea. So go ahead and trade him away, but aim for the stars.
I agree. Shoot for the stars. Thank you very much to Carlos Romano for donating. And he asks, would you trade Travis Kelsey for DK Metcalf and DJ Moore?
Okay, I see the idea here. No, no, I would
Oh,
not do that.
ooh,
I would not do
ooh.
that. Because if you want to trade Travis Kelsey, don't you want to trade him when he has a really good game and then see if you can maybe get something else? Second of all, there is no one else in this league like Travis Kelsey. Who do you have that is better than Travis Kelsey that you are going to be able to play at tight end? However, My one caveat is if you are in a league that does not play the tight end position and instead you have flex spots, then yes, I think I would do this trade. But if you are in a league that has a tight end position, this is very difficult for me to justify getting rid of Travis Kelce at all. Like that's very, very difficult for me to do. I love those other two players, but this is Travis Kelce we're talking about. A tight end that, unless God forbid he gets hurt, is your rest of season stud that has gotten off to a bit of a slow start.
In a vacuum, I don't think there's any way you could argue that Kelce is worth more than DK Metcalf or DJ Moore, because realistically, you just can't. With that said, I mean, I think your point about the fact of like Kelce's basically a league winner at tight end and in a class unto himself. And so if you're going down to like, I'm streaming a tight end to add these wide receivers, and you have any semblance of decent wide receivers, it's really tough to make that move to get rid of Travis Kelce. So
Yeah.
in a vacuum, I think that's more than fair value for sure. I
Yes.
just think it's
Yes.
very difficult to trade Travis Kelce depending on what else you
Yes.
have,
And
right?
that's what I'm saying too. But
Yep.
if you're cool, maybe you're in a league that only has like 8 players and there's a
Yeah.
lot more tight ends that are available than what we really do, which is between the, usually a 12-person league. So maybe you have a
Yep.
little bit more opportunity at tight end. So then I could justify making that trade. Because if you really need wide receivers, which it sounds like you do, then that could be something that makes it justifiable. But for me, I cannot get rid of that piece unless I absolutely 100% had to, because I didn't have a human body that was available to start in my wide receiver position. Wide receiver depth is so, so deep. The talent is available. You can find them. You can trade for them. I don't think you need to give up your tight end one, who is basically a unicorn freak of nature, to fill in bodies at the wide receiver position.
All right. Thank you very much to Overcome, who also made a donation, and he asks
Sorry, I
trade
was very
target.
passionate about that.
Yeah, you were. I
I
love it.
was
Passion is fantastic.
fired up.
Overcome asks trade target for Chubb, or should I just hold the line?
Oh, no, don't get rid of Chubb.
Why is
I wouldn't
anybody
do it.
trading Chubb? Why are
No,
we trading
why?
Nick Chubb? Because of one
Because Kareem
game?
Hunt had a good game.
I
Stop
get it.
it.
No,
You
don't trade.
stop it.
If you
Don't do
trade,
it.
Nick Chubb, you have to get back Devontae Adams, maybe. Like maybe probably not even that, or I don't
No,
know.
you're not going to
Don't do
get
it.
Devontae. No, you're
Don't
not
do
going
it.
to. Hold on. Stop it. No.
Just do it. Just hold. Thank you also to R Reed for the donation, and they ask, full point PPR, would you stick with Kyle Pitts, or would you pick up somebody like Dawson Knox or Tommy Tremble or anything like that?
Oh, okay. This is why I did not draft Kyle Pitts, because I did not want to deal with the headache and the drama that I was so afraid that was
Yep.
going to happen. I would also hesitate to really give up Kyle Pitts because it's early in the season yet, and there are a lot of big changes that have happened in Atlanta,
Yep.
and they are not at full capacity with what they are capable of doing, which is scoring points. Even with a really bad defense, they have to score points, and they're not doing it yet. So I personally would hang on to Kyle Pitts until he has a good game, and then I would trade him, but I would not drop him. That's a sneaky, gross type of situation that you're going to have to deal with unless you can keep him rostered and pick up a tight end to stream because you have the bench to do so. Then that's something I would do, but you can't really drop Kyle Pitts at this point. There's too much draft capital that went into getting him, and then you're going to be kicking yourself when he does finally have a really good game, and you could have traded him away for value.
I do think that Cordero Patterson is really cutting into Kyle Pitts' value, because I think he's
Absolutely.
taking a lot of like those short area targets that I
It's like
think.
one of the only things that I got right for week 3. That's not true. I got a few of them right, but Cordell Patterson proved me correct.
Yeah.
What a disastrous week
Mm.
last week was for fantasy analysts. Oh my goodness.
Crazy.
It was
But
bad.
I agree. Like you can't. There better days are ahead for Pitts, but at this
Mhm.
point, the streaming tight end, like you're not streaming them over Kyle Pitts at this point. Like there
Yeah.
will be better days, and he has too much talent. But yeah, I agree. This does look like the draft capital that you have to put in to get him is probably not going to be worth it. But anyway, I would still hold tight with him. I still think he's a startable tight end. Thank you to David Berry. He asks, half PPR, what would be a good trade candidate for Jamar Chase if you need a wide
Hmm.
receiver? If you need a wide receiver, I'm surprised you're trading Jamar Chase. Like,
Yeah.
that's a good
No.
wide receiver right there. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure where, Lauren, just generally speaking, I'll name a couple of guys. You can tell me, I think, if that's okay,
Oh,
who
I love
like
this game.
I have ranked around Jamar Chase in my rest
Mhm.
of season rankings. Like, Would you prefer Jamar Chase or Robert Woods rest of season?
Jamar Chase.
Would you prefer Jamar Chase or Allen Robinson rest of season?
Oh, Jamar Chase.
Would you
I can't
prefer
believe I
Chase?
just said that out loud, and I
No,
was
I would that this
confident
is
about it. I was
these are
confident
guys
about it too.
these are guys who like Woods and Robinson, for example, I'm not getting rid of at all, but we have to be realistic about what the situation is. This is no longer like borderline wide receiver ones until we see a
Mm-hmm.
turnaround. What about
Mm-hmm.
Chase or Mike Evans?
Okay. This one is tough because I kind of see them within a very
Yep.
similar mold. Okay. Jamar Chase. And I'm going to say Jamar Chase over Mike Evans before everyone gets mad at me about the blaspheming that I just did as an infidel at the moment. Okay, here's the deal. Um, Mike Evans is incredibly talented, but there are other wide receivers that are also talented on that team. Now, what we have seen so far is that Joe Burrow and the Bengals are able to sustain multiple wide receivers at the same time. Tyler Boyd got involved when Higgins was out. Jamar Chase gets involved when it's Higgins or when he's there or not. So that is why I would probably go with Jamar Chase. Mike Evans sees the best of the best when it comes to defensive secondaries, and he can get shut down, or he doesn't even get targeted because there's just no point because there are other players who are readily available to be open. So I would lean Jamar Chase there. And again, I cannot even believe I just said that out loud because I
No,
love Mike Evans so much. But this is kind of where I'm being realistic when it comes to fantasy football. You cannot be married to these guys. I mean, they're both very good looking. So if you are, I wouldn't blame you. But it's just one of those things where always try to remember to look at it. We use the word vacuum. Look at fantasy football like you've never played before. Look at it from that aspect, not from like, well, I know what he has been able to do for the last 4 or 5 years. Look at it on a matchup base. Have that in the back of your mind, but don't let it rule every single decision that you make, even though you might throw up a little bit in your mouth when you say it, like I do sometimes.
so
That
we
was
just
really
talked
hard
about
to do.
we just talked about somebody again who we had moved down, and that's Allen Robinson. So
Mhm.
Jeffrey Grievous asks, like, generally speaking, should I be worried about Allen Robinson?
No, Allen Robinson is quarterback immune. I think this is going to be a little bit tough with a rookie quarterback in Justin Fields, who literally spent more time on his butt than he did like standing. And then Andy Dalton is banged up and obviously not going to be the rest of season starter. And then we're dealing with someone like Nick Foles. Nick Foles is he's no green chicken, spring chicken, I should say, greenhorn, spring chicken. He will find Allen Robinson. I'm not worried about that. Just temper your expectations until we see a little bit more from the quarterback position and until something gets established because there's been no rhythm yet. I'm not worried for the long term, but I will temper my expectations in the short term.
There are so many questions right now about Dawson Knox, so I'll just fly through a couple of
Let's do
them.
it.
David Gallagher, would you drop Jonnu Smith for Dawson Knox?
Yes, I would.
Okay, I like it. So you're at for Harley Alfors, better replacement for Tunyon. I don't know if we're dropping Tunyon or what. Ingram or Knox?
Okay, I understand your fear with Robert Tunyon. Have no fear. Marquez Valdez Scantling is not going to be an issue for much longer because he eventually will drop a very, very crucial pass like he does every single year. And then he and Aaron Rodgers will have beef, and it's not going to be pretty. And it's going to be the Robert Tunyon game. This is the tight end position. When you don't have somebody like Travis Kelce, they're going to have bad games. So I would actually hang on to Tunyon amidst everything else we're looking at here. I'm not worried about him.
For sure. Sir Villa or Villa says, "Hey guys, I have Hunter Henry on my bench. Is it
Ooh.
crazy to want Knox from Buffalo? I spent a bit on Hunter too."
I understand that. That has been very disappointing when it comes to the Patriots tight ends, but we are talking about a rookie quarterback who we usually like to say they love their tight ends. Well, in this case, they
Yep.
don't. They like their pass catching backs and, Jacoby Myers. So in this case, I do not mind dropping Hunter Henry. Just, it's like ripping the band aid off.
Yep.
Just do it as fast as you can. Don't worry about it. Don't think twice. Yes, you can drop Hunter Henry for someone like Dawson Knox or Tyler Conklin is another name out there too.
Final one on Knox. James Winslow, would you drop Jared Cook for Dawson Knox?
No, I would not drop Jared Cook for Dawson Knox. I think they're both touchdown dependent. And when it comes to the Chargers, I think I like the Chargers' schedule for Jared Cook a little bit better over the next few weeks. Or did I just make that up? Either way, I think I'm going to still stick with Jared Cook. And now that I just said that out loud, it didn't sound or feel right.
The Charger schedule going forward is Las Vegas, Cleveland, Baltimore, bye.
Ooh, I don't like the Cleveland one. But I think they're going to be close games. It's also going to be the Mike Williams show, but how long will it be the Mike Williams show? No, I would stick with Jared Cook.
Okay, from Matthew M, would you drop Chenault for Emmanuel Sanders?
Yes. Yes, I would.
Okay, very good. And Russ Watkins says, are you benching Robert Woods? Because he hasn't done much.
Yes. I
Okay.
am benching Robert Woods. It's okay because if he blows up on your bench, woo, trade him if you don't want to deal with it. I mean, it's okay because then if he doesn't do well on your bench and you have somebody else that at least gets a little bit more targets and points, then you won't feel so bad.
Wonderful. Lauren, thank you so much for joining me today. Guys, we're going to be back every single week, as you know, at the same time, same bat channel. Like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Don't forget to tune in Sunday at noon. We're giving away a signed Alvin Kamara jersey. All you got to do is be subscribed before we get there and make a comment in there to be entered. And we will randomly draw a winner at the end, so make sure you stay tuned. Thank you for all the great questions. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for all the support to Tags and Tabby and the whole Tagliere family. I will talk to you again on the podcast and on live streams later this week.